Awesome. Welcome to another webinar or virtual roundtable with the Storage Authority experts. A little housekeeping, please remain on mute. Uh, Asking questions, you can either unmute and ask a question, throw a question in the chat, but we really do look at this as a virtual roundtable. We're doing this for our attendees to answer any questions you guys might have. But we're covering how to kickstart your self-storage land or facility search. So it's going to be a great webinar roundtable. Some quick intros. So from our team, this panelist is instrumental in combining technology and grit. For finding land, he's a huge resource to our storage authority owners. He's our land and development director, Mr. Kevin Harless.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon now, some areas.
We also have Storage Authority CEO, who's a civil engineer by trade. He's written a couple bestseller books in our industry. He's been helping individuals throughout the entire process become a self-storage owner for the last 40 years, Mr. Mark Gooden.
Welcome, everybody.
My name's Garrett Bird. I got in our industry in 2009. I've been with the Storage Authority team for about 8 years now. And we help busy professionals replace their income and create a massive real estate nest egg through self-storage ownership. So excited to field all the questions and kind of, answer the Q&A. Now, I do have several questions for our panelists, Mark and Kevin, but like I said, we're doing this for our attendees. We want to answer your hard questions. So if anybody has a question that they would like to unmute and ask or throw in the chat before we get going, please go ahead and throw that out there now. All right, I'm not seeing anything, so I'll go ahead and throw our first question over to Mark. Mark, why is it important to determine your investment risk tolerance before you get going doing this?
Great question, Garrett, and I'm going to answer that. I'd like to take a quick second though and just say welcome everybody. It's an awesome time for self-storage. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, mostly development, but also with us today is Josh Parker, who is our tech guy and our operations guy. So even if you have a question about operations, feel free to ask that. But that's Josh's expertise, and so he's not going to be talking so much about the land development. But I can tell you this, between the four of us, myself, Garrett, Josh, Kevin, we talk to thousands of people a year. We have a heartbeat on self-storage. We're learning from our franchisees. We've got facilities open. We've got facilities that we own. We got facilities under construction. We have people looking for land under design. We work with architects. We see what's happening out there, and we see the pain points. And so, understanding your risk tolerance is a very important pain point that's going to make your life a lot easier. But before I answer that, there's three things that, that we're going to talk about today that I just want to hit real quickly. We're going to talk about why to kickstart now. We're going to talk about how to find more land parcels or existing facilities and how to review them faster, because those things all get us to where we want to be, having an open facility. So it is a key. Now, why kickstart today? Why kickstart today? I don't know if you've ever heard the October effect, but it's people that start getting ready for New Year's Eve and their resolutions. Instead of waiting to January 15th, they start today. So they've got a head start for next year. And that is key. I mean, I was just talking to a franchise owner this week, and he said he's gonna restart looking for land in January. So that means he probably took off October, November, December, and half of January. You're not going to get anywhere. This business takes consistency. So, think the October, don't wait for the New Year's, start now. We're really at a tipping point right now in the business where a lot of things are happening. Interest rates are coming down. The market is looking better. Construction costs have come down. I don't think you're going to see a good a time as right now to get started in self-storage for a long time to come. I mean, I got started and my first interest rates were 8.5% on a couple of my self-storages. So anytime is good, but now is a great time. You know, and we were actually, Kevin and I were talking to one of the guys at Radius. Who were we talking to, Kevin, this week?
James McLean.
Yeah, James, a great guy. But, he said the number one reason people fail is they don't have enough deals on their plate. And we
Right.
we know that, but he said it and something we know. So we're going to tell you how to get more deals on your plate. I believe this is a tipping point for the industry being kickstarted, but it can also be a turning point for you. And the turning point is that magic moment where idea crosses the threshold to success. I didn't make that up. That's in the book, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. So there's a lot of reasons to get started now. But let's take a look about risk tolerance. If you have low or medium risk tolerance, you've got to do something to get up to that higher echelon of risk tolerance, because with lower risk tolerance, you're not going to put in the effort and you're going to pass on good properties. And when I say you're not going to put in the effort, that is time. People will only, you got to look at risk not as money. You've chosen self-storage because the risk is so low, but it's a risk of your time to the cash flow. So you've got to decide, is it worth your time to get this cash flow? And if you got a low risk tolerance for putting in your time, you're going to do it for 2 or 3 months. It's not gonna work. So effort of time is the most important key factor here. I was talking to a bank last week about a franchisee getting a loan. And I said, it's a great project. He says, the funny thing is about self-storage is even if for some reason they don't pay their loan, we can sell that thing for a couple million more than we have the loan on it every time once it's built. So it's low risk. The risk is you putting in half the time it takes. So you've got to go from low to medium to high risk tolerance to make this work. And one of the ways to do that, if you're not there already, is just more education on the business, the profitability of the business, and figuring that out. So it is important, and I'll leave it there. But you got to be prepared to put in that time and know it's going to work before you start. Otherwise, you're going to start, stop, start, and stop. And we have seen that from experience. It just doesn't work.
Thanks, Mark. Any from the attendees, any questions that might have put a light bulb in your head you want to throw in the chat or unmute before we move on to the next question? If it pops up, feel free to throw it in the chat, but I'm going to fire a question to you, Kevin. So what are the key factors to consider when starting your land search for self-storage development?
Well, honestly, Garrett, there are a ton of key factors that go into what you're going to do for land search and considering a parcel of land for self-storage. The top 5, however, are probably location, accessibility, and visibility, market demand and demographics in that area. Zoning and permitting is a huge hurdle that most landowners or most land parcel purchasers are going to have to overcome with the city. Size and shape of the parcel. I mean, you do need a particular size and shape. 5+ acres is normally what you want to go for with a self-storage parcel. You want it to be somewhat rectangular or square with good frontage. And then last and not least, but the cost and financial feasibility of the project. So when all of those things equal up to going into an area, does it have the right population? We generally say if you're 20,000 plus in population within a 3 to 5 mile radius, you're in a good area. Mark talked earlier about per capita. For folks that don't know what that means is that's how many storage units per population you have in an area. The higher number of storage units that you have per population can cause something called oversaturation of a market. So if you go into a market that's oversaturated with storage, then you're going to struggle to fill it up. It may take you 3 or 4 years. And certainly going back to the zoning and permitting, if you can find a parcel of land that's already zoned or permitted, even if it just needs a conditional use permit, that makes it a lot easier. But if you have to go in and completely rezone an area, that could cost you thousands of dollars, and there's no guarantee you can get that done. So, Garrett, that's the top 5 things that I work with people on when we get them off on their land search. And certainly I could talk on that topic for another hour or two if you'd let me here today. So
Nice. Any follow-up there, Mark?
No, the point is put those things on a piece of paper. The more you put on a piece of paper, the more successful you'll be. Certainly you're welcome to shoot Kevin an email, Kevin at Storage Authority. He'll send you our top 8 land parameters and what we use as a guide for those land parameters in order to build a good 6-figure income with our self-storages. One example is traffic. You don't want to go where there's 5,000 cars a day. It's going to be difficult to make that profitable. So again, contact Kevin afterwards. He'll send you our list of our guidelines, when you're looking for land of what's important, and maybe I'll hit on them a little bit later.
Yeah, just to follow up there, Kevin, you mentioned the square foot per capita, and that used to be the #1 driver that we'd look at. But shoot, nowadays it's, take me where the high rates are. That's where I want to build.
Well, absolutely. And honestly, I think a lot of people are walking by really great locations because of a misunderstanding of square foot per capita. Everybody's kind of thrown out a number. Mark said back in the day it used to be 2, and then it went to 3, and now it's 6, and to be honest with you, we're finding good opportunities in areas that are 10 plus. And the reason may be because there may be storages in the area, but they may be completely full and they may be increasing rate. So it's a much more dynamic target than what people assume it to be, Garrett.
Yeah. All right, I'll shoot a question over to you, Mark. So there are multiple ways to get into self-storage ownership. Should someone choose one or consider multiple options?
There are multiple ways, and I really think you should consider one and focus on that. I've actually got 6 right here, and the 6th one being buy self-storage stocks. That's a simple way. The self-storage stocks are always above the rest of the stocks when you look back at the 2 or 3 or 5 years, but you're not going to make the same as if you build a self-storage. If you build a self-storage, that's the #1 way for high profits. It also costs less to build than you buy. You're also going to be more likely to be close to home. Those are all the positive things. The negative thing of building is it takes time. It takes time to find the land. It takes time for design. It takes time for approvals. It takes time for construction, and then it takes time to fill it up. But in the end, you get out 5 years, you're going to be way ahead if you build it. And you're also going, when you go even further out 10 years, you're going to be miles ahead. But to give it, and the second way is to buy an existing self-storage. There's less risk, less profits, but it costs a lot more. And to give you an example, maybe for the same size facility, if you build it, it might take 1.5 million of your cash with an $8 million loan. If you buy at that same facility filled up, it's going to take $8 million cash and an $8 million loan. Humongous differences. Now, the exception to the rule might be, hey, I just got 200,000. I'm going to go out and buy a very small facility. You're not going to build a small facility, but you could buy a small facility. You're not going to make a 6-figure return, but it gets you in the game. So that is one. The third way a lot of people do in the self-storage, and I've done it myself, is find a partner. If you don't have enough cash, you don't want to give away your last ounce of cash, find that partner. They're not that hard to find. We can show you how to find a partner. All you have to do is ask around. You don't even have to have a piece of land. Would you like to be my partner if we can make this work? The fourth way of self-storage and respect goes back to those other ways, but that's finding it online or offline. You know, if you don't have the money, you're going to have to find it offline because it's going to save you money. In fact, you know, offline is typically 20%, sometimes even more cheaper than if you buy it already for sale from a broker. The fifth way, and this is my favorite, of course, wait for the right time. You know, there's never a right time for self-storage. So, you know, again, you've got to look at your risk tolerance. You got to look at your cash factor. You know, at Storage Authority, 9 out of 10 people, we're helping build a new self-storage. We do have one guy coming on board right now who owns a self-storage and he wants to bring it to the next level. And then we also have a team that's out there looking to purchase a dozen self-storages, but you know, they don't have the time, so they need a system, and it looks like we'll be putting them on board hopefully early next year. So those are the ways to do it, but you've got to define it. You know, and when you talk about a conversion of an existing building, that falls under the same parameter as buying land. It saves you a little bit of time. It usually doesn't save you much money, but it saves you time because you don't have to do as much construction. So that's in the same category as building if you convert a Walmart or a box or an old furniture store. So that is a great opportunity to consider as part of your land search. But everybody is looking for all these categories. So there's really not one that's super easy. It's more what fits your game plan.
And just on that topic, Mark, so Dan, he actually messaged in something that we're always screaming from the rooftops to our owners as well. How do you find now non-listed opportunities?
Yeah, and I believe that question is going to be answered by Kevin later on. So I don't want to steal his thunder.
All right, Dan, sit tight. We'll get to that. I just thought I'd weave it in there, but we'll definitely a lot of these questions that came in while you guys registered, we're gonna hit them now. But I thought I'd weave that in there. So, all right, any questions from what Mark just mentioned on the different ways to get into it? We got a question coming in from Keith. Can you talk on 2 points? How can you confirm property is zoned correctly? I assume zoning can clearly indicate land can be used for storage, maybe a gray area of zoning that can allow storage and complete no-go zoning for zoning.
That's a great question. And the answer is that there really is no gray area. All of the cities have very specific zoning ordinances. So when you do find a piece of land, and I even recommend doing this before you ever go out and look for land in the first place in your target market or city, go to the city or go to the city website, speak to them directly, or get on the website and try to decipher it yourself. And it will break down a map and all the coding for the zoning in those particular areas. And it will say on those zoning criteria where self-storage or what they call mini storages are available to be built either by right or by using a CUP or an SUP, which would be a special use permit to go in and use it on that particular facility. Then they will tell you what the process is if for some reason that particular piece of land is not zoned for self-storage or does require a special use permit of some type to be able to use storage in the area. Once you do that, you'll have a good opportunity to get a map at that point and know where the properties you can go search for are that are going to be the least intrusive to you to develop self-storage. And if you ever have any questions on it, cities are fantastic about sitting down and talking to you. Just call up, ask for the planning and zoning official. They'll give them to you and they'll talk you right through it. And that way, when you go into your target market, you already know what's going on. So when you target a specific parcel, you're not wasting your time.
Yeah, and not to jump on Kevin, but I'm going to actually simplify it one more step. You know, because that's what I did for a living as a civil engineer. I've probably been in front of the town with thousands of projects. So when it comes to zoning, there's zoning by right. That's what Kevin mentioned. And that means there's a set of regulations. It's going to say, you know, a bunch of things. If you design it to those things, you submit it to the town, and then the town staff approves it. That's the fastest and most reliable way. The second way, it is permitted by the regulations, but it doesn't get approved by the town staff. It gets approved by the commission. If it meets those regulations, the commission has to approve it. Now, the third way is the special permit or CPU. That's where it's the town has can set certain standards that aren't in the regulations. They can say, oh, because you're next to a church, we want you to stay further away. Oh, because you're near a neighborhood, we want this kind of design. So, you know, when there's special exceptions, they have the opportunity to deny it. When it's by right and approved by the town or by the staff, they cannot deny it. But when it's a special exception, they are allowed to deny it because, you know, it's more of a, does it fit in harmony with the community? And that's a big definition. If they deny it because it's not in harmony with the community, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
So, and then the last one is zone change. You know, and you have to have super high risk tolerances for zone changes because most projects get approved. I've never had a self-storage denied. I've never had any project denied. But with the exception of zone changes, because, you know, it's called spot zoning. Just because you want to change residential to a commercial, the answer is typically no. Not often, you know, 25% of the time they'll say yes. But a great question. I did see one person from Houston. Now, Houston is one of the 2 cities in the United States, and I don't even know the other one. They have no zoning. They have no zoning. So that is incredible, and that's why one of the reasons you see you know, a lot of self-storage and development and prosperity in Houston, because more regulations is more money spent down the drain, as we all know.
Yeah.
So,
and one more quick tip on the zoning: when you're there speaking to the city, you also want to look at what they allow when it comes to building self-storage, because some may have specific ordinances against multi-level. Some may have specific ordinances against so much ground coverage. So it'll give you an opportunity to ask those questions as well when you go to the city.
yeah. Hey, Alan, I see you wanted to schedule a call about a project you have. Just send me an email, Mark, M-A-R-C, @storageauthority.com, and I'd be happy to look at your project. You can send the details right over with that email, and we'll get to it at the latest by Monday. All right, Garrett.
All right, changing gears a little bit. This is you know, buying an existing self-storage facility. I'll throw this to you, Kevin. Like, what are we prepared to determine? What are we looking at there?
Yeah, you know, buying an existing self-storage, a lot of people think it's simpler, and for some cases it is, but at the end of the day, it does require a lot of work. When you go in and buy an existing self-storage, you're going to have to do your financial due diligence. You want to go into the finance records, the rent roll, see what their gross revenue is, their expenses. We do have some calculators at Storage Authority that help walk you through those things that make it a lot easier. Otherwise, you'd have to do those calculations yourself. The calculators we have, it turns it into a couple of minutes process. Doing due diligence for financials at a storage facility could take you half a day if you don't have something like that. You also want to go in and look at the physical condition, the assessment. What does the roof look like, the pavement, the doors, the office, All of those things may factor into whether you want to purchase that facility or not. Market analysis, again, just like with a build-up facility, you want to go in, how much competition's in the area, what are the room rates. One of the best things you can do by buying an existing facility is go in, buy it, and raise the rates. If you can go in and improve the facility and get the rates up, then you can get an automatic bump in your revenue. And that's really the name of the game when it comes to purchasing an existing facility. And some ways you can do that is improve the way the facility looks, improve the way the facility is managed, improve overall security at the facility and lighting. All of those things are things customers will pay for, and you can go in. So if a facility is getting, $100 on a 10x10, you may be able to do those upgrades and get that facility up to $130 for a 10x10, which would be a good 30% bump in revenue for you going into that facility. And, last but not least, you certainly want to go in and look for potential value add-ons and improvements. Could you add climate control? Could you add additional rooms? Is there abutting land next to that facility? All of those things could help turn that facility into a winner. Because if you just go in and purchase an existing facility and run it like it is, how it is, then you're just investing in something and you're not going to get much of a return. And then the last thing you want to look at is the cap rate. That, not even the last thing, but the first thing you really want to look at is the cap rate that you're buying it at. Because if you go in and buy at an 8 and you're at an 8, you're not making any money on that facility. You certainly want to go in and buy at the best possible value you can, so you can come in and improve the facility, get the rates up, and make that additional income. And then down the road, if you want to sell the facility, you'll be able to sell it at a much lower cap rate and make more money on that particular facility.
We got a follow-up question to that, Kevin, from Andy. What's the typical ROI on buying an existing facility? Oh,
that is a loaded question.
A lot of variables.
I couldn't give you an answer on that, even an industry average answer, because every facility is different. There are 10,000 square foot facilities and there's 100,000 square foot facilities. There's Class F facilities, which are the facilities you go up to that your wife says, please God, don't buy a storage room there, that have the barbed wire fences and no lighting and overgrown. And then there's the most beautiful facilities on the market that are absolutely Class A, fantastic, great management, fresh paint, fresh concrete, everything looks wonderful. So if you're interested in that, please give me a call. I'd be more than happy to set up a call with you and walk you through a couple of, we could literally pull up a couple of facilities on market and I can show you what an ROI opportunity would be at those particular facilities. But some people will buy a facility with no opportunity to make a cash flow at all, and they're okay with that because they're buying that for an investment to sell at a higher price later. Some people need them to cash flow at a certain amount, and certainly every facility is going to cash flow at a different level.
Awesome.
And can I add to that for a second, Garrett?
Sure thing. Yep.
I got a call this morning from a broker that had an existing self-storage in Connecticut. I have a couple of self-storages in Connecticut, and that's how he found me. And he asked me if I wanted to buy this 20,000 square foot facility. And obviously the first question I asked him is how much? And he said $3 million. It was easy for me to say no, thank you. Paid $3 million for that facility. I was not going to make a penny for 2 or 3 years, and that's just not my style. And again, he gave me the cash flow of 230,000, and that's how much the rents collected. And then he said the NOI, the money left over, was 200,000. So right there, he only had $30,000 a year in expenses to run that facility. And you can't run a facility for $30,000 a year. And, that's because they weren't charging for a lot of things that the owner was doing, or they didn't do any marketing. They didn't do things that a normal self-storage has to do to fill up. So you do have to be careful when you look at a facility. But the cap rate, when you see a cap rate, if you look at an offering, they usually have a cap rate in there. And that's the return you get on your money, basically, if you put all cash down. So if the cap rate is 6% and you put down $100,000 to buy it, you would make about $6,000 if you didn't have a loan. Now, if you borrowed that money and the cap rate was 6 and the loan was 7%, you would actually lose 1% or just about break even. So most people cannot go out there and buy a facility with a large bank loan because the cap rates are, you know, are so low, which means the profit rates are so low that making those bank loans will use up a lot of your profit. So there is a way. You do have to get a feasibility study done when you buy a facility, whether you hire somebody to do that or do it on your own. Most people have to hire somebody. The other thing is, you know, they'll tell you this is the rent roll, but you know, 20% of the people haven't paid their rent in several months. So it is a significant due diligence job to buy an existing facility to make sure you don't end up on the wrong side of the profit line. So
It is. And to let everyone know, Storage Authority, we actually do have calculators. A lot of questions come in on how much do you offer on a storage facility after you do your due diligence. We've created a calculator to where if you make an offer on an existing facility, all you have to get is that facility's gross revenue for the year, and it will allow you to make an offer at whatever cap rate that you put in that you're comfortable offering on that facility. So it turns that offer process into an instantaneous opportunity for you versus having to go through and calculate what offer you would have to make.
All right, I got a couple questions from Keith coming in. Is there a rule of thumb for price to square foot of land to consider when purchasing the land for storage? I'll throw that to you, Kevin.
Say that again, Garrett. You kind of broke up a little bit. I apologize.
Yeah, so is there a rule of thumb for price to square foot of land to consider when purchasing land for storage?
There really isn't a rule of thumb per se. What we tell most of our investors is they do want 5+ acres. Of course, that's going to change everywhere, just like everyone knows when it comes to real estate. What you do want to do is go in and set a budget for what you want to spend on your land versus for what you're going to get on a return. So most of our folks want to be in the $1 million to $1.5 million for 5 acres. So that's going to determine wherever the market is going to determine where you can be at for that 1 to 1.5 million, because really it's the overall project that matters. So, you know, if you go down into, you know, downtown Miami, you're not going to buy 5 acres for, you know, for under 1.5 million. But maybe if you go out another 30 miles, you can do that, and you can still buy in a market that's going to give you a good enough rental rate return to be able to subsidize that project. So, yeah, I know that's kind of a vague answer, but really and truly, the best thing to do is put your budget together for what your project is for land, and then go out and try to find land under that number. And to be honest with you, most of the time, you're going to find that off market, because on market land is so extremely high. In most cases, you have a better opportunity of coming in under your budget when you do find something off market that you're not competing with everyone else on.
Nice. And Keith did have a solid follow-up question. This is more on existing. When looking at existing buildings, what should we consider to compare/consider versus new construction as far as square foot for replacement costs?
Mark, you want that one?
sure. Right now, the construction cost has come back down. So we're seeing construction costs in the $80 to $100 per square foot range. You know, that's what we're seeing, and that's for single story. Multi-story is usually about 20% more. You know, I was talking to another lender who does a lot of self-storage, and they were seeing the exact same thing. We're off our highs of 6 and 7 months ago. So, you know, now we're seeing construction costs 80 to 100. Now, that's building a Class A facility with an office, nice signage. You know, we have a lot of franchisees, they talk to builders and they say, oh, I can do that for $70 a square foot. Anybody can say something when they don't have a set of plans. They're going to say, oh, I didn't include the cameras. I didn't include the videos. I didn't include the signage. That's all by the owner. Oh, you have two gates, one in and out, and you want battery backup. Now, you know, so I'm talking a Class A facility that you're not going to have hassles with, and you're going to be able to sell it for a lot more than that. Now, so that's the cost. Some facilities you can buy for less than construction costs. In other facilities, it costs more than the construction costs, depending on the quality, depending on the location, depending on the income. Self-storages, when they sell, they don't sell on the square feet, they don't sell on the location, they sell based upon the NOI. And the NOI is the profit after your expenses. It's the profit before taxes. So what an NOI is, they make so much income. I make $1 million income, and typically the expenses are about 30%. So I make $1 million income, I pay out 30%, 300,000. I have $700,000 in profit before taxes. And so that property is going to sell at a 5 cap rate. So I'm going to go right on my calculator now. I'm making 700,000 divided by 0.05. I'm going to sell that property for $14 million based upon the income. So self-storages sell based upon the income, never on the square footage. You know, we can have two self-storages 10 miles apart, the same square footage, and one can sell for a lot more than the other because, you know, it's run well and it has a higher net operating income.
I'll do a piggyback question to you, Mark, because I know how important it is to you. So if somebody's truly considering, you know, looking for land, getting into our industry, how important is it to have a written game plan?
It's absolutely critical. If you don't have a written game plan, stop what you're doing. It does not take long to write it. I'm going to give it to you right now so you can take it word for word. But that is going to provide you with accountability. That is going to provide you with efficiency. And that is going to provide you with a game plan day after day that you're going to need. So, you know, and I'll tell you this, it's my opinion that it'll cut your search time in half. Instead of taking you a year to find that land, we're talking about 6 months to find that land. And there's two parts to that written game plan. That's time related, how much time you're going to spend, and that's the search details and property qualifications. So, you know, if you're looking for 5 acres, you don't waste your time on 3-acre parcels. So let me give you some ideas that'll be helpful to put in your written game plan. So the first thing I like to see is how many hours per week are you going to search for self-storage? You know, if you really want to do this business, it's going to take 8 hours, 8 hours a week. How many hours are you going to research properties that you're going to find? I'm saying you need 2 hours a week. How many hours are you going to walk land? 1 to 2 hours a week. How many offers are you going to make a month? You know, if you're not making 1 offer a month, you know, and actually you should be making 3 offers a month. And the reason you have to make so many offers is land is still overpriced by the listed purchase price. But I'm telling you, 20, 30, 40% will take a lot less. But if you don't make an offer at a lot less, you don't know. So, you know, I look at it this way. You have to review 100 properties to find 3 properties to make offers on, and one's going to get accepted. So it's all about getting those 100 properties looked at. So now you know you're going to spend, you know, 8 to 13 hours a week looking for self-storage. What are the parameters are you going to be looking for? So the first one is how many acres. If you're going to build single-story self-storage, and you want to make a 6-figure income and say you're going to build, somewhere between 50 and 90,000 square feet, you need 5 usable acres. If you're going to build multiple story, you're going to be 2 acres. Now, for our franchisees, we've got it broken down from 2 acres all the way up to 10 acres if you want to build RV storage, if you want to build half multi-story, half non-multi-story, and it comes down to your budget. But if the lower the budget you have is the more land you need, in the sense that you want to build single story because it costs less. The second thing on your list, it's got to be zoned for self-storage, unless you got high tolerance risk. Don't waste your time looking at properties that aren't zoned for self-storage unless you're really going to go through that process and spend 15 grand 3 or 4 times possibly before you get approved. You want to set a minimum population in the 3-mile distance. I recommend at least 15,000. You want to set a minimum land cost. If you want to make a good 6-figure income, you've got to build that 60,000 net rentable square feet. $1 million is a good land price. Doesn't mean we don't look at properties all the way up to 2 million, but we shouldn't be looking at land at $2.5 million. The next thing is the competition rental rates. Right now, to build a self-storage, it takes about $1.60 a square foot to build the self-storage. I mean, you got to rent about $1.60 a square foot. And the closest thing to the average rental rate in a self-storage is a 10 by 10 non-climate control, if it's about a 50-50 mix. So that means you've got to rent your self-store, your 10 by 10 for $1.60. Now, so you can go onto one of the apps out there like Radiuses or Compass, or you can call all the facilities, but you can see what they're charging. Now, if they're charging $150, we can charge $170, $180 because we're not in the self-storage business. We're in the marketing business. I mean, you almost need to make the decision right now. You're going to be the price leader. You're going to be different. You're going to do sales and marketing. That is the key. And again, I wrote a whole book on sales and marketing. Garrett, you email Garrett, he'll send you a copy of it. But that's what makes the difference, because the average in the United States is about $1.10 for 10 by 10. There's a lot of areas where you can get $1.60, but you've got to learn how to go and do sales and marketing. I was in Sarasota the other day, and the cheapest hotel I could find was $500 a night in the downtown area. I usually don't stay in hotels. I usually stay at my home there, but it was flooded out. But if you're the Ritz, you can charge a lot more than Motel 6. And so you've got to do that. So those are the things you got to look at to start with, the competition rates and the things I mentioned. And so you really need that game plan with all that in there. And then part 3 of the game plan is, okay, those were the quick things, easy to look at. Now I've got to look at a few more things. I got to look at the topo, the wetlands, the zoning, water, and sewer. Now, if all these things are starting to gel, you can do a realistic profit and loss. And again, it used to take Gare and I 2 or 3 days to do these. Now you can get a report, like a Compass report, for $250. And it gives you a lot of the data. It won't give you the profitability of your site, but it will give you all the square footages and all the prices of what's around you. So you can throw in, okay, I'm going to build 80,000 square feet. I'm going to end up with 65 net rentable. The cost is going to be this. My expenses are going to be this. And the computer will spit out your profit. I mean, you got to make that. And if you do it by hand, it's only a 2-hour hand calculation. But the great thing about doing it with the computer, you can say, okay, what if instead of costing me $80 a square foot, I can get it built for 70? What if interest rates go down from 7% to 6%? And that's the advantage of having or buying a calculator to do it than do it on hand. So those are the 3 parts of your game plan: the hours you're going to spend, the initial property qualifications, and then part 3, the physical research and zoning research. But having that on paper, even if it's partly wrong, you're going to learn along the way. It's going to cut your timeframes in half.
Awesome. So we do have a couple questions that came in regarding off-market properties, whether it's land or self-storage. Real quick, I'm gonna answer Keith's question, or at least ask it to one of you guys. So this is in regards to putting an offer in for land. What are some of the contingencies that we should put in the contract to purchase land? Should we have something about the land is zoned correctly for self-storage or required permits? Mark, that's probably your wheelhouse, so I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, and Kevin's gonna, right after this, Kevin will go into more about off-market properties. But typically when you buy something, you've done a bunch of research already. So you know if there's sewer water. You should know before you make an offer, you should know if it's zoned. Why even bother making an offer if it's not zoned? But when you make an offer, letter of intent, or even the final contract, it's going to say in there, I have a 60-day or 90-day due diligence period where I get to do research on that property. I get to send my guy out and see how much is wetlands. I get to send out my boring guy to see if there's any ledge. I get to check with the town in more detail. And so if you got a 60-day due diligence in your contract, at 60 days, you can say, I want out with no answers, and they give that money back. The next thing you want to put in your contract is, okay, I had 90 days for due diligence. Now, if you're going to go to the bank to borrow the money, you need to put in a second time period that gives you enough time to get the property designed, get it approved, and get it built, and get a bank loan. And so you've got to work with your team. How long is that going to take? I mean, I know the answers, but I don't want to give them to you in the sense that there are, if I told you it takes 3 months to get a property designed, that is true. But could you get it approved in 1 month? Absolutely, if you've got good plans the first time around. But you can't risk it. Or say you've got $1 million to invest in the land properties is 600,000. You can have less time in your final time period before you have to buy the property, because you have enough money to do it, and by several months down the road, you'll have a close enough feeling, is that going to be approved? Most self-storage contracts do not have a contingency on getting a bank loan. They just simply do not. And that's why we recommend that everybody talk to a banker before they go to again. And if you have questions on a banker, email Garrett. He'll give you a couple of names where you can talk to him. Again, the banks provide loans based upon the feasibility of the project. They're going to require a third-party feasibility report that you pay for. We would suggest you get it anyways, because it's just helpful. And they do it based upon you being qualified. But that's a great thing of self-storage. Where else in the world can you put down $1 million and borrow $7 or $8 million? I couldn't do that, but for self-storage, I can do it over and over and over again, because it's so loan friendly and limited risk. But so hopefully that answers you some of the things that you want to put into an LOI, which is letter of intent for both sides to accept before you pay the attorney to $3,000 to write up a full-fledged contract. But again, send us an email. We're happy to talk to you live. Part of all this, we're talking together for our franchisees. We have a manual that has an outline of an LOI and talks about all these things. So it's just a massive amount of things. But when you're having meetings weekly with us, we go over that piece by piece by piece. It's not so hard, and that's why a lot of people decide that you know, it's better to do it with a team. And again, it doesn't have to be storage authority, but you do need a good team to reduce your risks and make sure everything's going to work out.
All right, I'll throw this next question over to you, Kevin. So we got a couple questions from Dan and Camille. Hopefully this answers your questions, but Kevin, I know this really gets your juices going because you're looking on a daily basis, but how do you find off-market deals, you know, from land to self-storage facilities? How do you prospect and find these owners?
And
Yeah,
Gary,
you know, it's multi.
Kevin,
Go ahead.
I just want to interrupt for a second. Kevin, can you talk a little bit, well, as you answer this, can you talk about AI as you talk about this and how you use that a little bit? I just want to
absolutely.
include that. Thanks.
Absolutely. And that was actually going to be a part of my answer. You know, one of the things it's a multifaceted answer how you look for off-market land. It's physical, it's on the computer. There's just so many ways you can do it. But the first thing I will piggyback off of what Mark said is you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan. You've got to have a place where you put these particular prospects for land. You've got to have a follow-up plan. You've got to have something detailed where you're keeping up with this stuff because it can get completely overwhelming. And if you think you're going to keep up with it in your head, you'll never be able to do that. So that's the first thing I would say to do. The second thing is it's multifaceted how you go find off-market properties. The first way you can do it is you can go get applications like www.regrig.com. Go back to your search area in your search criteria. So if it's 5+ acres in a zoned area, you can pull that up and you can literally go on your computer and start finding parcels of land that you want to look at. Now, along the way, you're going to eliminate some of those, and some of those you're going to say, hey, this is a great opportunity here. You're going to write that in your tracker. And at that point in time, you're going to start reaching out to those owners. Now, going back to what Mark said, this is where AI can come in really handy. You can put addresses into AI. You can actually do land search in AI. So, you know, ChatGPT, all these other ones, Microsoft has one, Google has one. You can really make your search faster by doing that. And anybody who wants to go through a few of those, please give me a call offline. I'll be more than happy to show you how to do that. But certainly once you find those pieces of land, you need to find out how to contact the owner. And what we recommend is when you find out how to contact the owner, if you can call them, you call them immediately. And certainly if it's an off-market piece of land, you want to have an idea of what you would be interested in offering for that piece of land. You can do that through market research. That's another place where AI can come in handy. You can go in and say, hey, for this particular area or region, you know, how much is land going per foot or per acre? You can have that data ready for you to offer a landowner so they know you're serious. And even an existing self-storage facility, you want to be able to make an offer that first time you speak to them because it makes you look like a much more aggressive, much more for real buyer. Because, and Mark will tell you this, you know, anyone who owns a self-storage facility or a piece of land, they're getting calls 2, 3, 4 times a week to purchase their land or their existing self-storage facility. So that's one way to do it. And then another great way to do it is go out and drive. That to me is the best way to figure out what's going on in your area that you want to develop. Go drive every single road in your town, every single good road where you know if you put a self-storage facility, you think it would be successful. Look for sale signs, look for property the size that you need. Take your tablet with you. You can use those www.regrid.com app right there in your vehicle with you to see how big the facility, how big the parcel is, who the owner is, all those things. And then keep a list of all of those parcels that you find, whether you're out on the road or whether you're looking at a computer. And then you want to set up a marketing plan to reach out to those owners. Call them first. Send them a postcard immediately. And the reason we like postcards is people tend to look at postcards when they get them in the mail. If it's a handwritten postcard, there's even a company that you can hire to send out handwritten postcards. People look at them. Then another week later, send them a letter. And you may have to repeat that process of sending cards and letters and emails and phone calls for a good 4 or 5 months before they even contact you back. Once they contact you back, that's where you can get in the process. And certainly it's not all just about finding that, 5 to 7 acre parcel. You may run across a 400 acre parcel where you reach out to whoever owns it and says, hey, I just need to carve out a little bit of land up front to be able to put a self-storage facility in it. Would you be interested in selling it? And a lot of times you will find that there are owners who are. So this is another topic we could go into for hours and talk about. If anyone is really interested in this topic, please reach out to me, kevin@storageauthority.com. More than happy to set up a Zoom call with you and walk through what we do and our processes here at Storage Authority. But certainly finding off-market land is not as difficult as everyone makes it seem to be, but you certainly have to have a plan, and you certainly have to have the resources and know how to use those to be able to effectively get it done.
Thanks, Kevin. I will say this, Kevin's been a great value to our team, and he's in Texas. I know he's a cowboy at heart. He's probably the most tech savvy cowboy I've ever met. And then he has that grit and hunter in him that he's consistent, and that's really how you win. He has the technology, but he's consistent, he's hungry, and that's how he shows our owners. So he's been a great value to our owners for Storage Authority. I know
And one more tip I'll give to everybody. If you find a piece of land that you like that is on market, there is certainly another 10 to 15 pieces of land within 2 to 3 miles of that piece of land. So when you find a piece of land that's on market and say that piece of land's 1.5 million, there are probably at least 10 to 15 other pieces of land that you could go contact the owner on. And if you can get in contact with them and if you can make an offer, more than likely you're going to buy those pieces of land that are off market anywhere from 15 to 30% cheaper than what you would buy that on market piece of land.
One more quick secret we can share with you too. If you're using Store Track or Radius and you see a lot of developments in the pipeline, I'd say only half of those get built. That's another great opportunity to reach out to see stagnant properties if they want to sell at a discount. I know we're getting to the top of the hour, running a little bit long. I want to get Mark's last question here because it's important. Mark, so can you provide your top 2 tips to help developers find land?
Absolutely. Just before that, I love Kevin's idea of drive more roads. I will tell you that 75% of our franchisees finding land driving the roads. One guy was actually driving the roads, and there was a sign. It was actually down on the ground. He lifted it up. He got a phone number up. He called the guy up. The guy was 92 years old, and that's why the sign was decrepit. And the guy wanted $1.2 million. And then our franchisee told me that his son didn't have any family. He just wanted to get rid of it. I guess he had a son, but he wanted to get rid of it. The son didn't want it, and he just wanted to get rid of it. And so it was 1.2 million. And Kamal actually bought it for $650,000 in the end, after all the negotiations. So it really does pay. And what I don't know if you caught this when Kevin said that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm bad. I spend 2 hours a night I scroll on my phone while the TV's going 2 hours a night. If you replace that with driving the roads, and you can drive the roads on your computer, the ReGrid app actually shows the roads, and you can take your cursor and move it down the roads. It shows all the parcels. That shows the outlines of the parcels. It shows the topography. Sometimes it shows the wetlands, the acreage, the shape of the land, and it often gives the owner's name. So it's tough after work to drive the roads. Most of our franchisees say, I'm going to drive the roads for 2 hours every Saturday. Set that in your game plan. But I'm also going to, to get my 8 hours in a week, I'm going to drive the roads 1 hour a night from my computer at home. So I like that. But so 2 tips, I'm going to give you 2 tips. you've heard about other people's money. I mean, that's the main reason people get into self-storage. You know, like I said, I can put down 1.5 million and borrow 8 million and make the profits on all that 9.5 million. That's other people's money. And sometimes that's the bank's money. Other people's money is the government's money. Say I've got, whatever, 8 million invested in this project. 6 million of that, it can be written off as an expense, a depreciation. So if I take 6 million and I put it into a 20-year depreciation schedule because of component depreciation, that means for 300,000 over the next 20 years, I don't have to pay tax on that 300,000. Now, if it wasn't for that, and I made that same profit, I would be paying over $100,000 a year in tax. So other people's money is important. Let me give you one more that's just as important, and people are not doing this. It's leveraging other people's time. I want to repeat that. Self-storage is the friendliest group of people out there. You can go downtown in your self-storage and these guys will sit with you, talk to you about it. Even though, they might not want to talk to you if you're going to build across the street, but if you're from another town, they'll sit with you. We're offering time, franchise or no franchise. So leverage other people's times and experience. It takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. I started self-storage when I was 25, when a guy came to my office, my engineering office, and said, would you build a self-storage? And I looked at him, he said, follow me. And we got in the car and he showed me what one it is. And I said, oh yeah, I can design you another. This was block, no fence, no gates, wood roof, and so I've been through that process, so leverage other people's times, and that's books, seminars, apps that are out there, your team, your engineer, your architect, your attorney. The key is, that you've got to make sure they have experience. They've got, and the best experience is ownership. We make our engineer and architect get together, because if either one of them designs that layout on their own, it's incorrect, not as efficient as it can be. So you've got to orchestrate that team. So that's one of my favorite things you can do is leverage other people's teams. And the next one is make more offers. I see people going 2 or 3 months and not making an offer. They don't understand the process, because you should be making an offer a week. And we have to make more offers now because people put their land prices, way up related to COVID when land skyrocketed. Well, land is coming down, but people haven't changed their price. But 1 in 3 are accepting significant reductions in their price. So make more offers, and use all the apps and information so that your design time for that before you purchase that property is as reasonable as possible. So those are my 2: is make more offers and leverage other people's times, unless you got that 10,000 hours to and nobody does. I happen to have it because it was my career, and then I built 2, and I retired at age 50 from my engineering business, and I got back into it about 10 years ago after my wife told me, I'm not going fishing with you anymore. You better do something. So I hired the best team here in the world, and we're having a pile of fun. And it's a great business. You just got to learn it in more detail, and that takes the time. But I think that wraps it up, Garrett. Unless there's questions or anything you wanna finalize.
Yeah, if any of the pre-questions that came in, and if we didn't answer it during the open discussion, I'll make sure I reach out to you. But if you want to find out more, if our franchise opportunity is available in your town, go to storageauthorityfranchise.com. You can go to the About page. All of our phone numbers are there if you just want to have a call with us. But, end of the day, we're a group of, 70 years plus experience in our industry. We're passionate about self-storage, passionate about helping our owners become self-storage owners. Whether you use us or not, just get into the industry. It's a great real estate asset. you run it like a first-class facility. We're in the hospitality business. Self-storage is our vehicle, but you can be a price leader, and you can create a massive retirement nest egg. So appreciate everybody's time. If we missed a question, feel free to reach out to us, but we'll have our next webinar coming up soon.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you, everyone.
Here, real quick, on our website is an FAQs. A lot of that is just standard questions about self-storage. So, it's worth reading because it might bring up questions you didn't have, and now you at least be aware of something, because, it's our job to make sure those landmines, are not in your way. So, check out the FAQs as well.
All right. Thank you for everybody's time.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.